Welcome to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. I'm host Lanasha Pawadi. Later in the show, I'll chat with Travis Holt Hamilton, owner of Holt Hamilton Films, focusing on Native American Indian indigenous stories that are family-friendly and uplifting entertainment. On the phone with me is Chef Bleu Adams, director of IndigeHub, an entrepreneurial think tank whose mission is to empower indigenous communities to achieve economic security and self-sufficiency through innovative and indigenous-led solutions. Hello, Bleu. It's an honor to have you on our show today.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
And before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and your background?
Sure. So I've been involved in food in some capacity my whole life. I grew up in Ganado, Window Rock, and Cross Canyon, Arizona communities. So I grew up on the Navajo Nation. And I was always a fan of the little roadside food businesses. Had a great love for chilies, pozole, mutton stew, etc. So when I went back to Provo, Utah and pursued my business degree, the first thing I wanted to do was open a restaurant that represented the food I grew up on. So I did that for many years. I opened my first big restaurant in 2011 called Black Sheep Cafe, and subsequently opened other smaller restaurants. But what I found in that journey is less than 5%, I would say, of my customers were indigenous and specifically from the Southwest. So I began to wonder, how can we change this? How can we make food more accessible? And it brought me back to the Navajo Nation, where we're the size of West Virginia. We only have 13 operating grocery stores. So there's a heavy reliance on prepackaged and processed food, which leads to health disparities, high rates of diabetes, cancer, etc. In an effort to address these issues, we created IndigeHub, which focuses on, we have three pillars of focus: access to basic business infrastructure, access to a shared kitchen space, because kitchens can be very expensive. But what I prioritize our work on is we're trying to build capacity for local farms, food producers, to bring their food to market and contribute to the economy through food. And I think that would have a direct impact, especially on the health of the community.
And can you tell us more about what IndigeHub is and the American Culinary Corps?
IndigeHub had started as a grassroots organization, all volunteer. But through COVID, what we saw was the complete lack of access to the supply chain. We put IndigeHub on hold. We had just held our annual Chef's Boot Camp, where we teach community members of any age, any gender, basic cooking skills, all the way up to knife skills and commercial cooking techniques. We had just opened Blackbird, which was a shared kitchen space, which allowed people that were interested in maybe starting their own food business to come in and utilize the space, run their own day if they wanted. They could run it for the week, whatever they were able to do. When COVID hit and shut everything down, including my restaurant in Provo, so we started to recognize the great need we have for things like, we have a problem with 80% of our roads being dirt. We're very rural. We rely on P.O. boxes, which is an obstacle to getting a bank account or a business lease, etc. But through COVID, we were lucky enough to partner with other like-minded individuals across the country and we started a rapid response organization called Protect Native Elders. And through Protect Native Elders, we were able to source hundreds of thousands of pieces of PPE. We were often the first point of contact for our first responders, our fire department, the police department. Even sometimes our IHS hospitals were relying on us to deliver face masks, face shields, surgical gowns, oxygen tanks. We ended up working with 72 indigenous communities from Mexico to Canada. When the supply chain started to release a little more product and people weren't as desperate to get their hands on gloves or sanitizer, etc., we pivoted back into addressing long-term solutions with IndigeHub. How can we prevent this from happening again if there's another instance of a new virus strain or a natural disaster? How can we effectively create long-term solutions? And that's when we incorporated with IndigeHub as a 501c3. So with that, our main objective is the advocacy. People don't really understand the intricacies of federal policy when it comes to Native American communities. I was lucky enough to be selected through the James Beard Foundation to become a member of the American Culinary Corps, which is a corps of 80 chefs, 4 who are indigenous, who have the opportunity and the space to talk about these issues, not just on a national level, but a global level. So that program is becoming very important. It puts me in rooms with politicians, on committees where they're making decisions on our behalf. We really need the indigenous voice and perspective in these committees that make decisions, especially surrounding food issues and food policy.
Bleu, can you tell us more about your culinary background and kind of how you got involved with IndigeHub?
Sure. So I grew up with my brother. I'm one of 7 siblings. My oldest brother we lost to gun violence on the Navajo Nation. My second oldest brother had been interested in food our whole life. And so as young as I can remember, we've partnered in some way to cook or cook for events, dances, high school dances, catering. So as I got older and I decided to pursue a business degree, I had to convince him. He had been cooking in great kitchens. He's classically trained French and Italian chef. It took a little bit to convince him, but I told him I wanted to open a Native American restaurant. And at that time, there weren't a lot, and there certainly wasn't a Native American category on OpenTable or Google for food. So after some time and convincing, I got him to come cook for me in 2011 at Black Sheep. In 2013, we got Native American category added. We were the first restaurant to get it added to OpenTable, which is a reservation system, and then now it's on Google and other platforms. So he had been my executive chef for many years. We worked together to develop menus. I was largely front of house and operations, but we lost him to COVID at the beginning of 2021. I had to make the decision of continuing our mission, which was to provide access to healthier foods in our community. And I did. I stepped into his shoes as chef. I've run 2 concepts so far, but I'm continually training. I just did what we call a stage, which is you go into someone's kitchen and you work in exchange for experience. So I'm actively becoming a chef as we speak due to losing my brother and my business partner and our foundation partner. So it's been a tough journey, but it's a very important mission. And I just feel like that's what we were meant to do, and I'm happy to continue doing this.
Thank you for sharing that, Bleu. I'm so sorry for your loss, but I am so happy to hear that you were able to continue on to your mission and kind of blossom this organization that you have created. But I know you mentioned previously a little bit about the culinary or chef boot camp. Can you tell us more about it, and also kind of highlight what other programs you provide through IndigeHub?
Absolutely. The Chef's Boot Camp is it's our pride and joy. It's a 3-day intensive training session for up to 8. We usually take 6 to 8 individuals. And the first year, I thought we would get mostly male individuals, maybe late teen to early 20s. But I was surprised that it was all female, ages 13 to 45. What was interesting is their willingness just to learn, and they learned so quickly. At the end of the 3 days, they cooked a 30-person 3-course meal that they could provide, and their family members, friends, and community members could purchase tickets. And they were able to function at such a high level. They did better than most of our professional teams that we've worked with, and that was very surprising to me. But it reaffirmed there's this saying that I've heard, and it said that there is so much talent trapped in poverty. And this was just an example of how much talent we have in our communities if only they had opportunity and access. So that's what we try to provide. As far as other programs for IndigeHub, we try to provide a lot of mentoring around business. Some of our issues as Indigenous entrepreneurs, and specifically women Indigenous entrepreneurs, is our lack of access to capital. We try to provide information, networking, and skills, and also changing the definition of capital, because when you say capital, you think cash or debt. But capital can also be your skills or talents that you can trade for services or products. So for me, opening Black Sheep, I didn't have a lot of capital, and I was not going to qualify for a loan, especially a high-risk business like a restaurant. So I had to rely on what I had. Who do I know in my network? What skills do I have that I can trade? What skills does my partner have that he's willing to trade? So we literally traded tattoos for a chandelier, or we threw a pizza party and we had our friends come in and help me clean and reupholster furniture. Like anything we could do, we had to be really creative about that. So I want to instill in people, you have skills, you have talents, you have a network. It's okay to ask for help and rely on them as you build your businesses. Sometimes this is the only way. Beyond that, one of my favorite programs that we're running right now, what I began to recognize is, in order for us to have even a baseline economy, we need to support our farmers and our food producers, not just on a commercial level, but also our traditional healers, because food is medicine. And we need to start from the ground up, which is the soil. So we have done our first soil training class, where we provided farmers with microscopes and also training on how to read the slides. This way, when they're trying to reclimate their soil, and they're using all natural composting, they're trying not to use any chemical inputs or fertilizer. They can actively monitor and see how healthy their soil is through seeing the microbiome, the little animals and organisms that need to exist in the soil in order to produce higher density of vegetables, etc. So that's one of the things that we're working on right now. We're hoping to do another one in fall, and we're hoping to do 4 each quarter next year. And we're open to other communities, not just the Navajo Nation, but if there are other communities that are interested in this program, we'd be happy to connect.
Bleu, how do you connect with Indigenous food producers or distributors locally?
Mile by mile. I was lucky enough to serve as the chair for Native Women Entrepreneurs of Arizona. We tried to visit as many as the 22 tribes in Arizona as we could, and through that I was able to connect with farmers, food producers, and I've continued to reach out to them to see what their needs are, try to provide financial and technical support, and I'm just really trying to improve that network and get people to support our mission as well.
And what is your favorite part of working with IndigeHub and why?
I think it's the way that we educate, we call it gentle education, because it can be, you can get a lot of pushback when you're talking about some of the issues that happen in Indigenous communities. They don't understand that we have a different set of rules to abide by. Our land designations are different. A lot of our lands are held in federal trust. They're not fee simple land. You can't just develop them. You have to go through a very lengthy process. It can also be very expensive. And all the obstacles to entrepreneurship, unless you know what those obstacles are, what those policies are, your perspective is, well, you're in America, you can open a business, at any time, which is true. I could go online, I could get an EIN, I could find a building, I could lease that online, I could open a bank account online. All of these things I can do in just a few days, and I can be up and running with my business. That system doesn't exist in a lot of Indigenous communities, sometimes by design. So we're just asking people to recognize that, and that's why organizations like IndigeHub need their support.
And finally, how can our listeners find more information about IndigeHub, and how can they contact you?
Well, if you'd like to meet me in person, I will be at the Arizona Indigenous Culinary Experience on Saturday, November 18th at the Scottsdale Museum of the West. Those tickets go on sale September 1st, and I believe it's the Arizona Indigenous Culinary Experience.com, but you could also just Google it. And if you want to get in contact with me digitally, we are at IndigeHub.org. We are on Instagram and Facebook at IndigeHub.
That's amazing. Well, I would like to thank you, Bleu, for taking time out to talk to us today, to tell us more about your journey on how you started IndigeHub and all of the great work you're doing in your communities.
Well, thank you so much for your invitation, and I hope we can talk again soon.
Coming up, I'll chat with Travis Holt Hamilton, owner of Holt Hamilton Films. Support for KRDP 90.7 FM comes in part from Native Health, with 2 locations in Phoenix, 4041 North Central Avenue, Building C, near the corner of Central Avenue and Indian School Road, and at 2423 West Dunlap Avenue. Native Health is also located in Mesa at 777 West Southern Avenue, near the corner of Southern Avenue and Extension Road. Native Health provides primary medical, dental, behavioral health, WIC, and wellness services for the urban Native American community. For more information, call 602-279-5262 or visit our webpage at nativehealthphoenix.org. Welcome back to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. I'm host Lanasha Pawadi. Holt Hamilton Films focuses on Native American Indian Indigenous stories that are family-friendly and uplifting entertainment. On the phone with me is Travis Holt Hamilton, owner of Holt Hamilton Films. Hello, Travis. It's an honor to have you on our show today.
Yes, hello. Thank you. I'm glad to be a part of it. Exciting.
Absolutely. And before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and your background?
Yes, I've been making movies since first movie Turquoise Rose that came out in 2006, 2007. Born and raised in southern Idaho in a little town called Twin Falls, and currently reside in Mesa, Arizona. And my wife and I, Rebecca, we have 6 kids. It's a little bit about us.
Thank you for sharing that, Travis. And tell us more about your film company.
Yeah, so we've been around since 2001, so over 20 years, making movies, a lot of independent, small budget movies, trying to put a lot of heart into them. We have, Turquoise Rose was the first one, and shot a couple others, Blue Got Boys, Pete and Cleo, More Than Fry Bread, Legends from the Sky. And then we've done a handful of documentaries as well, and so kind of bouncing back between the documentary side of stuff and then the written, scripted, narrative feature film world. Been able to tell some fun stories, and we have a bigger pile of scripts and stories that need to be told that we still want to go out and make happen.
Oh, wow, that's so amazing how much you've accomplished in the past 20 years since you started. And Travis, how did you first get interested in film?
Well, growing up, loved to go back in the early days before before the internet. Would love to go to the theater. We'd go to the drive-in theater as well, growing up in Idaho, and going and watch 2 movies in the back of the truck or with chairs on the ground in the gravel, watching on the big screen outside with the stars, and so just kind of growing up with that. I grew up in a time where we had to go and rent the actual VCR that played the VHS tapes. We had to get the whole contraption and bring it home for a weekend and watch 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 movies in that time, and then we'd take the whole machine back. So I grew up where it wasn't, you didn't have 37 streaming options and any movie you wanted to see at your fingertips. It was, you either saw it majority in the theater, or if it was on TV, which you had to catch it when they played it. It wasn't just whenever you wanted to see it. Or we would go and get the VCR that could rent movies and play. And then eventually with more and more VCRs were able to get out, and then the VHS later on that you could go and start owning films, and then we had the access to watch movies. So that was really, I guess, what got me interested. Is just I loved being wrapped up in a world that I was familiar with, and then following a story, and being taken on that journey and kind of forgetting about the troubles or the hot summer or various things, or getting excited to. Remember, Karate Kid came out and was excited to, now I need to go learn karate and stuff. So that just being, part of the culture we all share with film was where I got started from in the early days.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Travis. And do all of your films tell Indigenous stories?
Our focus is really we focus more on human stories. So across backgrounds, across ethnicity and race, and cross those boundary lines, and we try to tell a story that could be wrapped in any place in the world, could be wrapped in any culture in the world, or could be wrapped in the various places wherever, and kind of try to dial in to have that story that connects the human, connects the heart, that we all share. And so trying to find those stories that really that you see, like our first Turquoise Rose, it happened to be in the middle of Navajo land, and some in Phoenix, and that caught a lot of people's attention because people were able to connect with it and see, like, oh yeah, even though I wasn't raised on the reservation, or I'm in Japan, I can still connect with that film because I have a grandmother that I care about, and a grandmother that I want to still learn culture and tradition and things from as well. And so that's, we definitely are making Indigenous films, and we love doing that, and we'll continue to do that, but really focusing in on the heart of the story. And that's where, when there's no heart connection, or kind of that grabs the human spirit, I lose interest in those films. And so whatever film or wherever it's coming from, when there's that human element, that those are the ones that I latch onto, and then I'm connected, and I feel like I get more out of that film, or I learn more. Hopefully that makes sense.
Oh no, it definitely does. Thank you for sharing that. That is pretty amazing, and especially how you touch different cultures, and being on the other side, being a viewer, it is just an amazing experience, kind of seeing somebody that you relate to on a film. So that is pretty awesome. Travis, can you tell us more about one of your newest movies, Break the Mold, the Zach Bates story?
Yeah. So this is an exciting film. It's a documentary. It's 61 minutes. This was amidst the narrative process, when you're writing the screenplay and very laid out and trying to get things in order. You're looking for actors and locations, and just that whole film process on a feature film. I love the freedom. And of course, the documentary has its own challenges and ups and downs and such. But this film, Break the Mold, it was one of those stories that I wasn't looking. Okay, you start writing. Okay, what's the next movie I need to be writing? Where's my interest? What's kind of inspiring me? This is a story that I first heard about. My wife was on social media, which she doesn't spend a lot of time on, and she, was there. Hey, you need to read the story. And so I looked. There was a newspaper article that was about some of our friends that we knew when we lived in Flagstaff, and so I'm reading it, and this is Zach Bates. This is family we knew. This is his story of him trying to run a 100-mile race, and I'm reading this story that the White Mountain Independent put out, and right away I feel connected. I feel that humanness of the story of this young man's desire to run a 100-mile race. He's only been running 5Ks. He's autistic. But the humanness of that story connected, and by the end of that, reading that little newspaper article, I was kind of emotional, and just the thought, like, this is a beautiful story. This is amazing. I want to tell this story. I feel if I don't tell it, it's not going to get told in the way that I think it should be, or even at all. And so I quickly reached out to Zach's mother, Raina, and in a matter of a day or two or three, we kind of got things in order and got a little film crew and started kind of chasing Zach as he chased his dream to run this 100-mile ultra marathon, which is insane to run 100 miles within usually like a 24-hour time. And so that's how that film started, and it was a film that I just knew we needed to tell the story and it's really just capture the story. The story's happening in front of us, and so we're frantically, a camera, 2 or 3, grabbing, the footage and interviews and such as we can. And then it's, as I'm putting it together and, have my editor and others that are helping to finish it up, I realized, like, the story, yes, I know it's amazing, but then how it was coming together, like, this is very, very exciting. It's like very empowering. Like, I'm getting emotional watching, which I had already experienced and knew, but I was going on another emotional journey as an audience member, watching this unfold before my eyes as we're putting it in the edit. And that's where it, kind of came to me, like, well, maybe maybe I need to try to put this in theaters. And so that's what we've done. And so it's, summer is a horrible time to put in any independent film in theater because it's when Hollywood puts out all their big blockbuster movies. And so it's very, very difficult, more difficult to get a theater. And we, thankfully are blessed with a couple of screens and a couple of theater chains that were willing to work with us. And so we've had it played. It's played in a couple of theaters so far, and we opened in the Valley. It actually starts tomorrow. But it plays, from August 31st through September 7th is when it plays in the theater. So to get it on a big screen is a very, very big deal for an indie filmmaker, and then even for a documentary. One theater chain I asked about, playing a movie, and they say, well, documentaries mean death, meaning it's not going to do any numbers to make any money, so it's not worth the theater putting up the time to allow your movie to play. So, yeah, that's a little bit about the film, but it's getting great reviews, very positive. People are being inspired. People are wanting to go and find their own dream or work harder on a dream that they have and they want to accomplish. So.
I love to run. I started running in middle school. In high school, I ran for 3 years.
All right, pack.
What?
Just take a deep breath, relax.
Good luck, everybody. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go get it.
My best mile was a 5:09, and my best 2 mile was a 11:15. And my best 5K in cross country was 18:17.
When we first got the diagnosis of autism, my approach was, how am I going to fix this?
I guess I was kind of sad. When you hear the diagnosis of autism, all kinds of things go through your mind.
What am I going to do to help my boy so that he's happy and he's strong, that he can do the things that all the other kids are doing?
The visions I had of going out and playing catch with my son, I didn't know what it was going to be like.
All during his senior year, he really wanted to run a marathon. He kept asking me, Mom, I want to run farther. 2 miles is just not enough. 5K is just not enough. I want to do bigger races. As we were walking away from the graduation ceremony, he turned to me and said, Mom, before my 20th birthday, I'm going to run a 100-mile race.
If somebody was interested, wanting to watch this film, where can they go to see it?
So right now it's in theaters. Best place is to go to my website, Holt Hamilton Films, and you look up under our documentaries, Break the Mold, the Zach Bates story. We have a web page there that has places that it's currently screening or places that are coming up where it will be screening in theaters. So for the next little bit, it'll be a theatrical release, and then at some point we hope to get it on a big, kind of find a home for the film and get it onto some streaming platforms and allow people of the world to be able to see it. We're getting some international interest as well. Zach just ran another big 100-mile race over in France, Italy, and Switzerland, I think, up in the Alps. Got in another really, really big race. And so there's some international interest as well in story, but once we get to that streaming way, then it'll allow a lot more people that are wanting to see the movie be able to watch it. But yeah, through my website's a great way right now to find it, at least where it's being shown.
Oh wow, that is so exciting and so amazing to hear how that film is going to be watched all over and by different audience. Travis, do you have any any projects you're currently working on or new projects you're working on?
Yes, great question. I have our movie Touch the Water, which is another Native American film. It it's almost finished. It's going to be hitting theaters November 3rd, and so it's a story of an elderly woman in her 70s, and this is scripted, so we wrote this one. But it's her journey trying to find purpose in life, and she comes up with the goal that she wants to go and see the ocean. As something simple, you think in a lot of people's eyes, but when you think about if you don't have a driver's license anymore, or you've lost it because of age, or you can't see as well, or your health, or physically not able to, and just you start adding up lots of variables that sometimes something that seems so simple to others that some of us find it very difficult to accomplish. And so that's the story of Touch the Water, is a Native woman wanting to find purpose in life and not get stuck in a rest home, or having to leave her home, and just her journey of trying to make the use of her life. The tagline for that film is "You're never too old to dream." And so we just had the trailer of that movie come out, and it was really neat. Was able to get it on Apple iTunes trailers, and it was number 3 on the list out of all the movie trailers that they have on there. It was number 3 most popular for a few days. I think it's still on the first or second page right now, but kind of a big deal for a little indie film. So that was a big kind of a stepping stone for us, and we've never kind of experienced that with one of our feature movies before. But yeah, that'll come out November 3rd. Right now we're booking theaters for it. I know we have a couple that are in New Mexico, Farmington and Gallup, and with Allen's Theaters there, and we're hoping to bring some home here to Arizona as well. Hopefully Harkins will open the doors and allow us to play on there. So, but yeah, that'll be same thing through our website, holthamilton.com. You go to movies and just click on the Touch the Water page, and then that'll have where that will be showing. And we'll probably do a similar release, play it theatrically, and then hopefully it'll land on a streaming service or TV station at some point.
Well, that is so amazing. I'm looking forward to that movie as well, and it's such great news to hear that it got number 3 as well for a while for the one of the top trailers on Apple. So congratulations! I bet it is a very big rewarding feeling knowing that.
Yeah, it is. We have the film was so. It was a lot of money for us, but when you compare it to the millions and millions of dollars that Hollywood puts into a film, and then for us to be competing with, Oppenheimer and Barbie and all the other movies that are being released, and for it to be able to play one of the most popular was very, very surprising. And we were happy that it just Apple, the Apple trailers at least had it on their site, and then we started. I didn't even know that it was up there until I had a friend of mine that said, "Hey, look, you click on the most popular trailer button and look where it is." And so then I was kind of like, "Oh wow, that's a pretty exciting big deal." So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And Travis, how do you come up with the ideas for your films?
They're all a little different. Really, it's just knowing I want to tell a story, and I try to involve prayer in the process of like, okay, I know there's ideas out here, help guide me to them, and so it's experiences. It can be like the seed of an idea can happen simply from being in a certain location. It can be I see something happening on the street, or I see somebody says something to somebody else. Or it's, the influence, it's kind of hard sometimes to draw where those really early stage seeds start. With Touch the Water, it started, I was in California. I helped coach a track team or a cross country team. My kids was high school, and we were out there, California. They did a kind of a fun run into the season thing. And we were staying in San Diego. I went for a jog in the morning along the ocean, and then I went out on one of the piers that goes way out into the water. And as I was coming around towards the end of that pier and going around a corner to start my journey, my run back to land, there was a very, very old couple, and the lady was in a wheelchair, very fragile, and then almost just as fragile man, which I assumed they were a couple, was pushing her on this wheelchair around the corner as I was running by it. And just the happiness in both of their faces and the kind of the joy, and they're like, just like they were in a good place, I could tell it. And so that image stuck in my mind, and I ran back and I started to think more about, okay, how does that, and then thinking of, being in Arizona, there's not a lot of ocean near us, large bodies of water. And so just started thinking of like, well, what if there was a story of an older Native woman that had something to do with the ocean? And so that's kind of where that idea started for Touch the Water, was it is a combination of that actual real life event for me, and then trying to see, okay, well, what if it was a Native woman that wanted to go see the ocean? And then, well, that doesn't sound like, it's not Mission Impossible and you have to do all this crazy stuff to survive or whatever, but it was a very simple, in my mind, a very beautiful, simple journey that's maybe not as simple as you would think, once we get into the story that happens when you don't have a driver's license and all these other reasons that pile up. So yeah, ideas can come from lots of different sources and areas, and usually it's a 2 or 3 or 4 different sources that kind of come together, and then I take that and then push it a little bit more. And I have an idea file folder or a inbox thing, and I have lots of projects that I have titles for, and then a handful of scripts that have kind of went further than an idea that now they're actually text on a page and in story form. And one of those I'll be pulling out to start working on again to do some revisions to hopefully that'll be the film that comes out next year. But so it's a process for sure.
Oh, wow, that is so amazing. And I'm definitely looking forward to what other films you have in the works in the future. Travis, do you have a favorite movie or the most impressionable that has impacted you?
I do. There's a lot of great films. I think, kind of depends on, where. The one that comes to mind right away, and I just watched it, Cinderella Man. I've watched it probably 2 or 3 times this year. It seems like, being a father with kids, and sometimes that struggle of making sure your kids are taken care of and you're being able to provide for them. And, sometimes there's lots of variables that make it a little more challenging than other times. I enjoy watching that film and watching this, based on a true story. I love that, based on a true story movies. Just the journey of this man that he goes through to provide for his family. And yeah, it happens to be some boxing and stuff in there that he does that, and just that time during the Great Depression and all of that's going on. So that's one of my favorite films. And then, I could go down the list. Moneyball, I love that movie. Again, kind of a small dog trying to, take on the bigger dogs with baseball. And so that's kind of the genre I really like, based on true, kind of the underdog story.
Oh yes, definitely. It's amazing how a story or a film storyline has really impacted kind of like how you rate the movie. Like, oh, I really related to that movie and it's one of my favorites. Or it could just be a comedian, like a comedy movie that just gets you happy.
Yeah, exactly. It just brings you able to escape, or just makes you laugh. And I totally agree.
Yes, definitely. And Travis, I know we were just talking about how you had a lot of scripts or just different ideas, titles lingering around in your file. But what are your future plans for Holt Hamilton Films?
We want to put out a movie a year, a feature film in theaters once a year. And we want to put it out November, first Friday of every November, that there's a a Holt Hamilton film that, Native film that hits theaters. November, Native American Heritage Month. November is another one of those months that's really hard to get a movie in theaters because it's, approaching the holiday season. Thanksgiving's a big movie watching time. Then you go on the holidays and the New Year. Like, that's another time that big movies will drop, and so it's kind of been impossible. In the past, I would approach wanting to play it in November, and a lot of times I would be told, like, oh, well, how about January when nothing else is coming out, and February when it's, much slower. And so that's a lot of times when our films have come out. And this year, I just say, you know what, we're going to just tell everybody we're coming out November 3rd, and then hopefully we can get some theaters that say yes, and we can start training the theaters we work with that this is when we have a film that will come out, will be that first Friday in November, and we'll just keep every year we supply films. So that's kind of where I've had that goal for many years, is to be able to shoot a film this year, and this year that'll be the movie that plays next year, and be able to, so every year I'm shooting a movie and putting a movie in theaters is kind of the big goal for us. And I, all of our films have been so like independent, very small budgets. Hopefully we can get some more funding and make a little bit bigger, have a little bit bigger production. But if that doesn't change, I'm fine with that. For me, it always comes back to the heart of the story. And so I think we're in a good space to keep moving forward with what we're doing, and hopefully the films are getting more, you're able to tell a better story, and the quality hopefully is improving over our various films, and that's our goal, is a movie a year and get the quality and everything better and better.
Wow, that is an amazing goal, and I do look forward to seeing a film every year. Travis, how can our listeners find more information about Holt Hamilton Films, and how can they contact you if they have further questions?
Our website is probably the great place to start, holthamilton.com. And then our website, there's the contact us page. You can find a place to send us emails. Has lots of our trailers for our movies. We're still selling DVDs. Which is great. We have some other merchandise too, our More Than Fry Bread shirts, and we just came out with some turquoise rose puzzles. So all that you can find on our website. And Facebook, Holt Hamilton Films, is a great spot as well. Message us, communicate that way a lot. And then we have our Instagram, Holt Hamilton Films, as well. So those are kind of the three, where we website, Facebook, Instagram, that we play. So you should be able to reach us through any of those outlets.
Perfect. Well, I'd like to thank you, Travis, for taking time out to talk to us today, to give us an update about your films and all of the great work you're doing and your future projects as well.
No, thank you so much. Enjoyed speaking with you, and letting me ramble for a little bit was nice, and hopefully we're excited. We don't make movies just so I can sit and watch them myself. Make them for the world to see, and I appreciate you helping us share with your listeners. So thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and 90.7 FM KRDP. Our executive producer is Susan Levy, sound engineer is Javier Quiroga, and our host is Lanasha Puwadi. We hope you will tune in again next week. If you have any questions, please reach us at nativetalkaz@listen2krdp.com.